So Ravens flock, I want to talk about the future of the offensive line. But before I get into that, I want to remind you all to never underestimate how far people are willing to go in the name of their pride and their ego and their desire to want to be right. And yes, I'm talking about John Harbaugh here. But as far as the future of the offensive line, or lack thereof, I want to briefly touch on it in this video because most teams, when they're building in the NFL, they're making decisions either for the short term or the long term or both. Ideally, you would want to do both. But you look at this Ravens team, and when it comes to this offensive line, I don't see moves that truly solidify the short term or the long term, honestly, specifically at the guard position. Because if you talk about the short term, then we have to talk about the present. Okay, where are we at as a team in the present? In the present, we are a team that is supposed to be in a Super Bowl window, a closing Super Bowl window, a rapidly closing Super Bowl window. And in that present tense, this offensive line is a joke. It's absolute garbage. And we all know why it's garbage. Really, because of these guards. We all know that. And in the short term, in the present, while we're in this Super Bowl window, the Ravens, the coaches, as well as the general manager, Eric DeCosta, they have chosen to not make any moves to fix it. And now we're sitting here every week with these same exact frustrations because we all know, even though we're on a winning streak right now, we all know that once we get to January and we got to go back to playing good teams again, we all know that these guys up front, they can't compete. They just can't. You know, Faalele, for example, is somebody I wanted to talk about in this video when discussing the potential future. And I don't want him here, obviously. I don't want him on the team. But because John Harbaugh and Eric DeCosta have stubbornly chose to keep giving this man a starting job, putting Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry's life and legacies at risk, because they keep doing this, I gotta start thinking about what is the future when it comes to this complete disaster of an offensive line and this whole guard position conversation that we've been having for the past several seasons. Because in a realistic world, they would have already traded for somebody like Kevin Zeitler or re-signed him in the offseason in the first place. That way, you could have an insurance policy in case the guy that you want to make the starter so badly plays as bad as he's playing right now. But they did not do that. Instead, they chose to dig their heels in deeper and keep allowing this bum to go out there and touch absolutely nobody. Despite being like 800 pounds, he can't stop anybody, he can't move anybody, and he definitely doesn't scare anybody. But they still go out there and try to convince us that this was the best possible scenario. John Harbaugh, as we know, a few days ago, he went out there in a press conference and lied again and said that the best 5 guys are out there and that they are showing progress. Now, if John Harbaugh wasn't a jerk, I would be a little more understanding of what he's trying to do, because what he's trying to do is not kill his players' confidence, which in theory you should be trying to, not kill your players' confidence as a coach. However, we also have to remember this is the same John Harbaugh that when we voiced our concerns previously about the issues on this team, such as this offensive line, he dismissed us and spat in our face by saying we're just a bunch of people at the end of the bar. So with my end of the bar brain, I don't accept that as a valid response, because it clearly shows that you're willingly ignoring the biggest elephant in the room, because you believe that the fans are just that stupid that they can't watch this game play out and come to a rational conclusion that we don't have competent guards. But again, I want to bring it back to the conversation about the present and the future. We all know in the present, Faalele sucks. But you also have to start to wonder, is John Harbaugh and Eric DeCosta's stubbornness going to push them to the point where they are going to try to give Faalele a contract extension? We all know that the Ravens, they love telling everybody how when everybody else zigs, they zag. And clearly that turns out to be the case, because when everybody else makes rational decisions, like drafting the offensive lineman, quality offensive lineman in the first round, they chose to zag and draft a safety who they could have gotten on day 2. And they miss out on a guy like Josh Simmons. So clearly they're willing to zag when everybody else zigs. So you got to start to wonder, okay, well, other teams, when they zig in this situation, they would have already benched Faalele, they would have already cut him, and they definitely would let him walk at the end of this season. You got to wonder, are the Ravens preparing to zag again or zig, whatever, and give Daniel Faalele a contract extension? We often forget that when it comes to the 2022 draft class, there's several players up for contract, players who we want to come back, like Isaiah Likely and Tyler Linderbaum. But then there's a guy in Daniel Faalele who no fan of the Ravens wants back. But like I said at the beginning of the video, you can't underestimate how far people will go in the name of their ego and pride and wanting to prove that they're right. And it would be ridiculous to the point where it would be damn near hilarious if they went out there and they gave Daniel Faalele an extension and forced us to watch this abomination for the next 4 to 5 years. Now, I don't think that's realistic, but unfortunately, the Ravens don't do the logical things that we would assume is the realistic and rational choice. So I have to now consider, what if they're dumb enough or crazy enough or stubborn enough to give Faalele an extension? Another possibility when it comes to the future is maybe this was all in the name of comp picks. Like I've told you guys on many occasions, Eric DeCosta has an addiction. People keep thinking I'm joking. I'm kind of joking, but I'm very serious. Eric DeCosta has a draft pick addiction. I've been telling y'all this for like 3 years. He has a very serious addiction. And I had to start to wonder, is all of this gaslighting, all of this embarrassing offensive line play, is all of this in the name of them wanting to just hope that some other team is willing to scoop up Faalele in the offseason, just like the Jaguars scooped up Pat McCary, so it could help their comp pick formula? I hope that's not what they're trying to do, but knowing the Ravens, that's exactly what they're trying to do. And that to me is even more disgusting, because it's things like that lets me know, not only do you not care about winning, you don't care about the present, and you definitely don't care about the future. Because you're willing to throw Lamar's health in the toilet. You're willing to sabotage Derrick Henry and make people think that he's washed when he's clearly not. all in the name of trying to keep trotting out that bum on the offensive line, hoping that another team will look at him and say, oh, well, he's 6'8", he's 400 pounds, we'll take him, just so you could get another comp pick. A comp pick that you're not going to do anything with because you suck at drafting? Come on, man. Is that what this is all about? Comp picks? The more I think about it, realistically, that's probably what this is all about. They want more comp picks. I told y'all EDC has an addiction. Ladies and gentlemen, it's an addiction at this point. And some people might say, hey, if we get comp picks for Faalele, that is helping our future. I disagree. Because when you look at the track record of Eric DeCosta, he has not made good use of all these picks. That's not debatable at this point. He has literally had the most draft picks out of any GM over the past 7 years, and he has missed on the overwhelming majority of those picks. It's not even close. So what use is an extra comp pick? Nothing. It serves no use. But again, as far as the future of this offensive line, we all know what needs to be done, or we all know what should have been done before the trade deadline and during the offseason. They didn't do it. So now we have to look towards the future and wonder, are they going to do the right thing this offseason? And so far, it's looking like a no, honestly, just because of the fact that they're too cheap to want to go get an elite or at least an above average guard who we could slide in and help shore up this offensive line for the first time since 2019. And then also, as far as the draft is concerned, they already showed this past season that they don't care about the offensive line in the draft. Because again, if we as fans can see these guys are terrible, and you're supposed to be experts being paid millions to evaluate these guys, you cannot convince me that you didn't know prior to the draft that these guys needed to be replaced. And you had multiple opportunities in the first round this year, multiple options in the first round this year to make that upgrade, and you chose not to. Therefore, we can't trust you with the future of this offensive line. Maybe things can change, but the more seasons go by, the less faith I have. But let me know, do you think this is an overreaction and the future is bright for this offensive line? Or do you think that we are cooked?